Hello and welcome to my review of Charlaine Harris's 2005 novel Shakespeare's Landlord. This story is about Lily Bart, the survivor of a violent sexual assault who moves to an Arkansas small town called Shakespeare. She works as a cleaning lady, making her privy, see what I did there, to her clients' secrets. Lily is an absolutely foul human being, sneering and critical of everybody in the town, and this unreadable piece of trash is nominally a whodunnit. After a midnight walk, Lily returns home and notices somebody using her garbage cart to ditch a body in the local woods. She then finds the body, interferes with the evidence, and anonymously calls the police. All of which is perfectly normal behaviour in the circumstance. She then continues her life of cleaning for other people, judging them contemptuously, and eventually begins a sexual relationship with a married man who runs her karate club. 80 pages in, yes, 80 out of 214, she decides, starting tomorrow, I decided as I rolled onto my left side, I have to find out who killed the landlord. In the stage before sleep, it seemed that simple. And before we move on, slightly angrily, let's ask the question of how relevant this part is. This part is okay, it ironically sets up the idea it will be anything but simple, but what does this do? I ask because this book infuriated me. Its plot would be beaten in a race by a glacier, and its long-winded, dawdling descriptions were utterly tedious, and don't try and claim that it was due to her trauma, because her narrative style and structure doesn't change from the first page to the last, but her state of mind clearly does. Here's one from the end. A couple of times Claude brought carry out and we ate together. The first time in my bedroom he improvised a bed tray, and the second time I was able to sit at the table, though it exhausted me. The important thing is to consider language. What does it say about characters? For example, improvised here implies a character who can think on his feet and not get fazed by a problem. In the context of the domestic setting, he can make do with unfamiliar places and things, yet he might not be exactly at home in the kitchen. Quite why you need to be establishing character in the final scene of your book is, of course, an open question. But if you aren't doing that, then you can just say, he bought me food a couple of times as I gradually got better. And oh boy, would this book be better if Harris would actually do that from time to time, because it is a painful labour to finish the endless descriptions of her cleaning rounds, her dislike for everyone around her. I reached into my windbreaker pocket and pulled out a narrow, lightweight, powerful little flashlight that had caught my fancy at Walmart. In this passage, we learn that Lily is the sort of person that likes to shop at Walmart, and that Harris is the sort of author who thinks lightweight and narrow don't establish little. She clearly also doesn't subscribe to Douglas Adams' belief that bad writers use too many adjectives. Though I'm starting to be something of a believer myself. I started the washing machine. All 8 apartments, of course, have the same layout, with the east apartments mirroring the west. There are 4 units upstairs and 4 downstairs. The building's front door and back door unlocked at 11, and residents aren't supposed to give anyone a key. Marie's apartment is a ground floor apartment on the north side. She's had it since the building was erected 10 years ago. Marie and Pardon Albee are the only original tenants. In Marie's apartment, as in all of them, the common hallway door opens directly into the living room with an area to the rear used for dining. Across from this dining area is the kitchen, of course, which is well lined with cabinets and counters for an apartment kitchen. The hall starts where the kitchen and dining area end, and to your right in Marie's apartment is the closet containing the washer and the dryer and shelves used for linens and cleaners and odds and ends. Almost opposite this closet is the door to the master bedroom, which is a nice size and has a very large closet. On the same wall as the wash closet is the door to the much smaller guest bedroom, and at the end of the hall is the bathroom, the large frosted window which is supposed to be the second line of escape in case of a fire. With this passage from page 14, we learn, everyone already certain, that this is going to be a bad book. We also learn that Harris says, of course, too much. And if it's that obvious, do you need to say it at all? The answer is, of course, no. But let's have a look and see how many things we might consider not quite a Chekhov's gun, but the sort of setups that might be useful later on in a dramatic whodunit. Not supposed to give anyone a key, so either the killer is one of the 8 residents, or maybe someone has a key who shouldn't. Maybe these large closets will be used to stash that body, and obviously somebody's about to set a fire, right? Otherwise, how much of this, as a reader, do I need to know? Does it tell me something about a character who is finicky over detail, or about an author that's boring? Cleaning the Shakespeare clinic was an exasperating task because of paper. Paper was the curse of the doctor's office. Forms in triplicate, billing forms, patient health histories, reports from labs, insurance forms, Medicare, Medicaid, they were stacked everywhere. I had to respect each stack as an entity, lift it to dust and put it in the same spot, so the office shared by the receptionist and the clerk was in and of itself a landmine compared with the office. The waiting room and the examining rooms were cakewalks. For the first time it struck me that somebody must also be cleaning those more than once a week. As I vacuumed, I mulled this thought over. Nita Tyree, the receptionist? I couldn't figure Nita agreeing to do that as part of her job. I barely know Nita, but I do know that she has 4 children, 2 of whom are young enough to be in daycare at SCC, so Nita leaves when the last patient walks out the front door, no matter what is sitting on her desk. Jeanette Jinks, the nurse, was out of the picture. I had been behind the 50th Jeanette at the Superette Food Mart only the week before and had heard, as had everybody else in a 5-foot radius, how hard it was to work for a woman, how young Dr. Thrush wasn't accepting the wisdom she, Jeanette, had attained with years of experience, at which point I had tuned out and read the headlines on the tabloids instead, since they had more entertainment value. So the surreptitious weekday cleaner had to be the good doctor herself. I had stepped up the bills. Without wanting to, I knew how much Carrie Thrush still owed for her education, and I had a feeling that some weeks it was hard for Carrie to pay even me, much less Jeanette and Nita. I chewed this over as I mopped, having dusted and vacuumed around the doctor as she sat at her desk, a stack of omnipresent paper on every available inch of surface. That passage is nearly an entire page of the book, which isn't over 200. Yet it says nothing about anybody and does nothing to move the plot along. Dr. Thrush, and I assume that doesn't mean in America what it means in England, has one involvement in the story. She gives Lily experimental painkillers that knock her unconscious for 12 hours, surely ending her career if anybody found out. While Jeanette and Nita don't appear in the story at all, no action of any kind other than this cleaning takes place in the doctor's buildings, rendering this whole thing a tedious waste of time and perfectly summarising the story and plot. It also answers this question, because this is an author that's boring. But that's okay, because her protagonist is vile. She judges everybody she meets, criticises most of their appearances, humiliates her neighbour for the crime of being nice to her, and is irritable throughout. And when considering her customers, for Lily is a cleaner, she says, I get aggravated all over again at the people who are lazy enough to pay me to clean up their mess. Well, that's your business gone then, isn't it? Of course, the crux of her foul personality is her backstory. Lily was kidnapped by a murderer and loaned to a biker gang who raped her and left her with a pistol and a single bullet, which she used to kill the kidnapper when he came back for her. She's effectively trying to find a place where she can leave the infamy around the case behind. She says, I would kill them all, I thought, but I'm not scouring biker bars across America, and I'm not standing in the post offices looking at wanted posters to see if they've done anything else. I haven't hired a private investigator to look for them. Please do. Please, please, please do, because that story would be so much better than this one. Well, maybe not, because Lily or Charlaine don't have much in the way of brain power. She's asked, why did she come and live in a town called Shakespeare? And she replies, the name. My name is Bard. As in the Bard of Avon. This is Shakespeare. You picked it off the map like that. I tried a couple of places earlier that didn't work out, so random selection seems as good a method as any, except what you've described is in no way random. But returning to Lily's backstory, that's some extreme trauma, the sort you'd hope an author would handle very sensitively, even as far back as distant 2005. Lily, though, across the course of the book, starts to feel a bit better about life, particularly after she has sex with Marshall in the gym. After all, no matter how bad the trauma, it's amazing what a good screw can do for your outlook. I wonder if she saved that gem for page 101 because it should be in room 101. 20 pages after having unprotected sex with a new partner, Lily can still lecture a boy who is actually using condoms to just keep using them. But 20 pages further again, what's this? Regret for not having done so yourself? We did take a moment for protection this time and hoped we wouldn't pay for a previous stupidity. Ah, Lily Bard, you make it so easy to hate you. Last one, because this review could just include every tedious, rambling and long-winded page in this excrement, but Lily's one comfort in life is karate. She's a super fit martial artist so that the sycophantic, dull-eyed, cretinous reviewers can pour joy on a strong female heroine, even though they're unlikable in every way. This is how she describes her time in the karate lesson. After a few seconds, I began to relax. The pain required my attention and the anxiety of my encounter with the policeman began to fade. Of course, if you actually told the truth to the policeman and behaved around the evidence in a sensible way, you wouldn't have anxiety around policemen. But back to the passage. I started my meditation on the kata we would practice later. Ignoring the ache in my quadriceps, I visualized the various moves that made up the Gaiki Sai Nibbon. I reminded myself of mistakes I habitually made, and I anticipated further refining the grace and power of the kata, a series of martial arts strikes and blocks and kicks woven together in what becomes almost a dance. 3 minutes, said the first-in-line student, a huge black man called Raphael Roundtree, his watch strapped to his obi. Maybe it was early onset hatred for this book, but not only did I hate this, not only can you make do without it all, but does this not read like somebody trying too hard to convince, like somebody that did 5 minutes Googling martial arts terms and then used too many of them? As I mentioned, after 80 pages, Lily decides to investigate. She doesn't do any investigating, but it's the thought that counts. Oh, I tell a lie. She does briefly look at a few carports, but on page 165, she thinks about everyone and then decides who did it. She's then accosted by the murderer. Luckily, the police chief is only one step behind, but as Lily grapples with the killer, he decides he can't thump the killer because he might accidentally hit Lily, so he shoots him instead. Please think about that for yourselves, how thumping the wrong person is too dangerous, but shooting them with a gun is not. I think we've also answered the question on whether it's Lily or Charlaine Harris that is a dumbass. The answer is, of course, both. Because the police were there with the required evidence at the same time and she didn't have evidence, she was looking for it rather than let the police do the job, we could also consider that with the DNA from the body on her garbage truck, her fingerprints on the body, and then her tampering with the final piece of evidence as well, that she could very well have ended up taking the rap for the crime because she's so very, very stupid. Additionally, the police chief's presence there reveals that the plot would have turned out exactly the same had Lily not got involved at all. But after 200 pages of her cleaning, whining, criticising, describing irrelevances in huge detail, this isn't the sort of story where Indiana Jones, for example, tries a number of things, but they inevitably end up on the same path anyway. This is the sort of story where Lily does nothing at all, certainly nothing useful, but ends up the hero somehow. It's tedious, it's awful, and it's stupid. Thanks for watching. You can buy my books on Amazon or eBay. Like and subscribe for more of this sort of thing. Sometimes I amuse myself by writing a fictional column for the bi-weekly Shakespeare journal while I work. Dr. John Sizemore recently received a bill from a skin magazine, and I don't mean the kind for dermatologists, so he's hiding the copies somewhere. His receptionist, Mary Helen Hargreaves, when the locals say it sounds like Mare Helen, does her nails at work and reads English mystery novels on her lunch hour. His nurse, Linda Gentry, finished a package of birth control pills today, so next cleaning night there'll be Tampax in the bathroom. But who would be interested in a column like that? And here we have an irrelevant aside, 3 characters that don't appear in the book, judging, criticising and gossiping, and a rhetorical question that really should be answered. The column, like Shakespeare's Landlord, should be read by nobody.